Welcome to this episode of United States of Sick Care. I'm Tamara Young, and I am so excited about our guest today because it required minimal preparation on my part, I hope. And that is because I have with me Garrett Riley, who is a dear friend of mine. Welcome, Garrett.
Hey, Tamara, good to see you. Great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. I'm so excited for this conversation because just so everybody's aware, this is going to really mirror the conversations that Garrett and I have anyway about this topic. I think it's really interesting. We're going to dig into his experience and the topic of, pharmaceutical sales and deeper into, just the inherent profit motive that's present in healthcare. It's just a reality of healthcare. And we're going to talk about that. Garrett and I come from very different perspectives on a lot of things, but as I believe is often the case, our perspectives really intersect when it gets to, what we ultimately want to see and what our values are, and so on and so forth. But Garrett, why don't we start with you giving my 6 listeners just a brief bio of who you are, your background, what you do now, all that good stuff.
All right, we might even get this up to 7, Tam, after this.
Ooh, you're that big of a draw?
I've been in sales for over 20 years. And pharmaceutical sales was part of my sales journey. So I worked for Pitney Bowes mailing machines back when we used to put things in the mail. And then I did the pharma job. And then I work for a financial job right now, doing some private label credit cards. So I've been doing that for quite a while. Mm-hmm. But yeah, my time at the pharmaceutical sales job, it is amazing, and there are some stories. So I'm happy to share just some anecdotes from an insider perspective.
Awesome. Well, to kind of just start with where you worked, so which companies, I know you mentioned 3. So over the course of your experience as a pharma rep, which companies were you selling for, and what were some of the, let's talk drugs. What kind of drugs were you pushing?
Yeah, so the company is Cardinal Health, and they're actually a huge, I looked up their valuation. It's like 160 billion is what their valuation is. Mm-hmm. And you might have seen, if you're driving on the interstates, there's Cardinal Health trucks. It's a recognizable logo. And their basic role is they're a distributor for pharmaceuticals. Mm-hmm. But they're also in niche stuff as well. And what they did is they were like a middleman between the pharmaceutical companies and sales reps. It was contract sales is what I did. So okay. They hired a sales team, and we had a different contract like every 6 months. So every 6 months we learned like a new drug. And Tam, I was not, this was kind of like the leftover pharma rep. I was not like the big time, like Viagra rep or, Crestor or something like that.
So like Lyme disease drugs and
pretty much, yeah. These are like repackaged things that had been around a while, and we just kind of repackaged them. Like an example was, amoxicillin has been around forever. Mm-hmm. It's generic. It is used for ear infections. So we both have kids. My kids, we definitely got amoxicillin prescriptions when they had earaches. Mm-hmm. Because kids get earaches quite a bit. And so we had little niches, right? Yeah. So the amoxicillin has to be refrigerated. So it comes in this bottle, and it's an oral suspension because kids can't swallow pills, obviously. So for a lot of my time at Cardinal, I was selling amoxicillin that could be dispersed in a tablet, and we called it Dispermox. So Dispermox, think of Alka-Seltzer, where it just disperses. And if you're going to go on vacation, if you're going like taking your kids to Hawaii or on a cruise ship, and you don't want to carry on a big cooler to keep that amoxicillin refrigerated because it has to be, or amoxicillin, Augmentin, whatever. So I would come in and go, Dispermox, great for travel. It's great for travel. It's indicated for acute otitis media. And if you've got patients, have you ever had patients, you do like discovery, have you ever had patients that, they take a step back when you tell them that this has to be refrigerated because they're going on a trip,
Mm.
right? So that was what we would do.
Really
And then
finding the pain point.
finding, yeah, but it was the drugs, like I said, it wasn't anything groundbreaking. It
Sure.
was, yeah. So, and Triamenic was the other one. That's, everyone knows Triamenic. I think they still do
Yeah.
cough syrup, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the interesting things. I can't remember the percentage off the top of my head, but one of the interesting about things about the pharmaceutical industry to me is that very little of it today is the new and shiny innovation, like true innovation. What we would think of as like a brand new formulation or drug on the market. It's so often, like you said, either repackaged with a basic tweak or some kind of, I'm assuming some kind of patent where they patented a technology that would keep it, shelf stable without refrigeration. A lot of it is piggybacking on existing technologies and drugs. Um,
That's, yeah.
I've heard someone say that I've probably heard this multiple places, but that pharmaceutical companies are less innovators and more hedge funds. Would you say that that's the case from your experience?
Well, it's certainly with my experience, yes, we did not have anything groundbreaking.
Hmm.
That is for sure. But there's money to be made in repackaging things. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But like I said before, we did not have Viagra, which of course is groundbreaking. And then the other groundbreaking one is, what's the one? I forgot it, that for weight loss that you have to get the injection.
Oh,
Is it Ozempic?
semaglutide.
Yeah, is it Ozempic or something? I don't know what it is, but
Ozempic is, yes, the brand.
yeah,
Semaglutide is
for
the,
diabetes, right? And then that's like I have not seen a response just anecdotally from a drug since the Viagra days. I mean, this is like everybody's on it.
yeah,
Um, but we didn't have like drugs like that as a pharmaceutical rep. They really just sell themselves. I mean, what my job was, is to convince doctors to write prescriptions for my drug, and there absolutely is. We're incentivized. We had quotas, we had sales goals, and you would get fired if you did not hit your sales goals. So this is not a government run corner healthcare clinic,
yeah,
neighborhood clinic that is distributing things for healthcare related issues. This is absolutely, insert like widget here, you got to sell X amount of widgets. If you do, you still have a job. If you don't, then you're going to be on performance improvement. If that continues, you're going to be gone looking for
mhm,
another job. So it was no different than my other jobs in terms of push the product.
sure. And you're a sales guy. That's your experience. What I'm curious to know, how did you do in that industry? Obviously you weren't slinging Viagra, so you were limited
No,
in terms of the products you were selling, but how did you do as a pharma rep?
I did well. I think we got laid off. They laid half of us off. See, I was in that niche. Um, I don't even know if Cardinal still has the contract sales. I think it is still a thing, but yeah, it was like the foot in the door type of job. We did well. I did pretty well. I think that in sales, when I was just so excited to be there. When I first started, it's a prestigious job to get.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think I did it about 20 years ago. I was thinking about it. So I had just turned 30, and I was thinking, wow, this is great. So I was very excited. And I was like, now as yeah, like more jaded, I'd be like, it's a freaking amoxicillin tablet. I don't know, take it or leave it. But back then I was like full of like youth and like vigor,
Yeah.
and I was just really pumped. So I think that a lot of that played off. And for some reason they were prescribing it. But then you've got the other issue with pharma sales is you have to make sure that the pharmacist doesn't substitute for generic. So part of the job is you got to visit pharmacies.
Tell me about that. First of
That's a
all,
whole,
before you get into that, I want to say that I'm glad you brought that up because I was really tickled knowing you as well as I do. I was really tickled just at the visualization of you getting so excited and hyped up to a doctor about, well, what if your patients travel? Like this is on the go. And yeah,
and it
a
tastes like
little bit more.
strawberry. It tastes like strawberry. Are you kidding me? Yeah.
Ah, that's so funny. Yes. So, oh yes, I really want to know about your approach to pharmacies.
So pharmacies we would have to keep track of, and we would um we would go in and just we try to build relationships,
Mhm.
sweet talk them as best we could, and just make sure that they know that. Have you ever switched this and you've gotten some pushback from the patient saying, I wanted something that was good for travel, and you came and gave me this stuff that it ruined the whole thing. So it was that Dispermox product was easier to keep it from switching for sure. But we
Mhm.
would just do that and say there's a reason why the doctor wrote this way. They would be really concerned if it was on formulary or not. That was
Yeah.
the other thing. Um, the doctors ask those questions. The pharmacist will switch it to make it cheaper for the patient.
Yeah.
I'm a Kaiser patient. My wife has Kaiser insurance, and we've had it for quite a while. So with Kaiser, it's just there. It's everything's generic. They'll
Yeah.
just so yeah, but and we're
That's
not even allowed to sell in Kaiser, by the way.
yeah.
No, you'll never see a pharmaceutical rep in a Kaiser hospital.
I'm loving this now because I'm no legal expert, but we are in the territory now of where the ethical gray area is because ultimately, as a patient, when you don't have the experience behind the curtain or know anything about what happens behind the curtain with, the influence of pharmaceutical companies on pharmacists and doctors, with the influence of pharmacy benefit managers on what's, you assume that your doctor prescribes something and the pharmacist is also ultimately working for you and giving you, the best deal and price. Um, so I love that we're in ethical territory too, with thinking about like, how as a patient, like, what if I never thought to like have a trusted local pharmacist, and that there was any value in having like a relationship with them as a provider. But it makes the trust factor come through a little bit when you think like, yeah, I want a pharmacist who's going to advocate for me over like the incentives and the sweet talks of pharmaceutical reps, right?
Yeah, and for sure. And you actually know more about this than I do, Tam, in terms of like the whole pharmacy setup. Like for me, it was just I was just solely focused on having them just make sure they don't switch it. And then just having Kaiser, it's sort of been one of those things where I haven't thought about it too much, but no, there absolutely is no more local pharmacist down the street. Everything's corporate. It's all CVS or Walgreens, and
Mhm.
if you're in New York City, I guess it's Dwayne Reed, right? Or do they have that where you're
Yes.
at? They have Dwayne Reed's in Tennessee?
No, we're pretty Walgreens heavy here. Some Rite Aids, but
Yeah.
there's a Walgreens on every corner here in Nashville. I'll just, for people who don't know how the whole pharmacy benefit manager and that process works with insurance, I'll just boil it down to one tiny anecdote of my experience, which obviously is not representative of everybody's experiences, but I had gone off of all of my prescription medications except one that I was still tapering down. We got rid of our health insurance coverage, and my medication that I was still on went from $30 to free because I no longer had insurance. So there's just a little, and that was 100% because of pharmacy benefit managers and how they ultimately, in a roundabout way, work as an extension of insurance companies to make sure that the pharmacist has to tell you or is legally um gagged from telling you like you could actually get this cheaper without using your insurance.
Which
So
is crazy.
it's crazy. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
that's definitely crazy. I'm with you on that one for sure.
Yeah. But it speaks to like the underlying thing that you and I both really agree on and resonates is like this profit factor. We're in America. Like we are capitalists and it's just kind of inherent to our country's DNA. And so the profit motive is, it's always going to poke its head through in interesting ways to end consumers in any industry. It's just where it gets touchy for a lot of people is when, you believe just fundamentally that everyone should have access affordably to the very best, care for their bodies and their health. That's where it just gets a little hairy in this industry.
Yeah, for sure. And so Tamara, I'm curious, ask a question of you. Have you seen Dope Sick on Hulu yet?
No. Okay, I
Okay.
was trying to mentally file
Yeah.
through the ones that remind me of the plot of Dope Sick. I might have.
So the reason I thought of Dope, it's the Sackler OxyContin. It has Michael Keaton. He plays a doctor.
Okay,
Uh,
no, I haven't seen
okay.
that.
You have to like clear the deck and watch it, because one of the things that they mention in that miniseries is the whole off-label, the pushing of off-label
Mm,
to the pharmaceutical reps. And what was so fun for me in watching that movie is that their depiction of the pharmaceutical reps. Um, and I mean, everybody, all 7 of us have to go watch it right now, right after this. But um, I did some off-label. I was encouraged to do off-label, which is completely illegal. And they will, you technically can be liable as a rep
mm.
for doing that. So
So
yeah,
in other words, do I have this right that a physician is fully empowered legally to prescribe off-label? The drug I mentioned to you just now, the last one that was so hard to come off of, that was prescribed off-label for anxiety. It's a neurological drug. And
uh,
it was really easy to go on, and it made me feel great. I went on it in inpatient rehab, which I could make an argument for sure that I don't always shit on pharmaceutical companies. I really believe that in that setting, when I was really fighting for my life to get sober, I really benefited from that kind of stopgap of prescription medications in some cases. But that was one that I went on that was really easy to go on. And then coming off, I was like, I had no idea that I was going to be dog sick with the flu, just trying to taper off of this stuff. But it was prescribed off label. So you're saying that doctors are fully empowered to do that. However, where legal issues come into play is when pharmaceutical reps are trying to sell it into doctors as off label.
yeah. So what a rep might have done in your case is they might have gone in and say, well, I have a drug that's indicated for, um, X ailment.
Seizures.
Right, there you go. I have a drug that's indicated for seizures, but I also hear that it's really, really good for anxiety or something like that, right? So you get the indication from the FDA that it's only indicated for seizures. And so a pharma rep could have gone in and said, Dr. Bill around the corner, he mentioned something interesting. He mentioned he had some luck with anxiety with this drug. Not saying anything, but I'm just saying, you didn't hear it from me type of thing, where the pharmaceutical rep would say that. And that's would be off label. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the doctors can do anything they want. They are God in this
Yeah.
situation, and they can
Mhm.
prescribe, anything for anything. And that's sometimes, that's how, like, I only know a few drugs, but to take it back to like Viagra, that was for something else. That was for like blood pressure, I think. It was indicated
Really?
blood pressure. Yeah. So there's different things that they can, or like hair loss pills can be the one that I sold, in addition to Dispermox, is this drug called Alinea. And so Alinea is indicated for some stuff that you hope you never get in your life,
Okay.
which are stomach bugs. It's disgusting. Crypto and Giardia, which
Oh,
you never want to get, right? Ever. So it was only indicated for those 2 things. And then when we had our sales meeting, this is what stands out. And my friend Scott, who worked with me at Cardinal, and when he's the one that really encouraged me to watch Dope Sick, because 20 years later, I mean, we're just like experiencing what we went through on steroids. And so we actually I was in the room. I could have gotten like a whistleblower compensation for this if they would have had iPhones back then.
Mm,
One could only guess, but they specifically said this new contract that came online, and Cardinal actually gave us a or not an announcement, but some basic training about not recommending, like, what is off label, and you don't do it, right?
sure.
It's illegal and you don't do it. And then literally the next thing is our customer, the Alinea marketing chief, comes up there and says, hey guys, you know what? I know some doctors that are using Alinea for much more than crypto and Giardia. They're using it for like rickets or whatever he was saying, or all kinds of, like, the common flu, whatever. It's just like all sorts of things that can be that you can think of regarding, stomach issues. And it was just like, whoa, like I was, even my younger naive self, I was like, this is incredible. I can't believe this. Is this how like the world works? Like you're just like, it's just like pure capitalism,
Yeah.
So yeah, we absolutely got that sales pitch. And then they had to stand up and had one side of the room go sell, and the other side of the room would stand up and go Alinea. And it was like this cult meeting about how to sell Alinea. And that was the last contract I ever worked on. They laid everybody off, like not because we were all bad, but just the contract was over.
Yeah.
That's my example of absolutely a pharmaceutical manufacturer it's just pushing the doctors to write it at all costs. Get the docs to write it at whatever cost. So
Yeah. So you were trained obviously on benefits and ways to sell it. I'm just curious, in your vacuum of an experience, were you trained at all to speak to risks of different medications?
yeah, so yeah, for sure. We would just kind of read off of what it was that what they would say, but we wouldn't volunteer it. If they would ask us, we'd be like, well, it could be like, I don't know, like gassy stomach bowls. What have you ever seen that Saturday Night Live commercial, Tam, where they have like a parody of all the pharmaceutical drug commercials we see in the US of the side effects?
Oh, I love it. Yes.
And then it's like, yeah, it's like loss of vision, children born with the head of a golden retriever. you know?
I know. I'm like, if I, which I would never, I would be terrible at it and I would never want to do it. But if I were some sort of regulator or something, I would, like, that would be my first decision. Be like, okay, well, first I would say, like, let's not advertise for this anymore. But if we are like 50-50 split benefits and risks, like half of your commercial has to cover the risks, because nobody can read that fine print, not
Yeah,
when there are happy people dancing around to look at.
yeah, they say it really fast. It's an auctioneer at the end, so
Yeah.
really, really fast.
Yeah. So only if doctors talk. And I know that you and I come from where we differ in perspective is usually, you find yourself a little bit more in defense of industry than I do. I find myself more, more often shitting on industry than you do in the case of like healthcare in general, not just pharmaceutical companies. But at the same time, like, I think you and I share like a realization that there is value in understanding, like, behind the curtain, how this works when you're trying to advocate for yourself as a patient. Why do you think it's important to, maybe not even important, where do you think the value is of just understanding how the process works behind the scenes before it gets to you as a patient?
I think it's super valuable. I think that knowledge is power, and that people should go in with their eyes wide open and just consider that this is the way that the system is set up. There's good doctors and there's bad doctors. If you're going in there maybe not for an amoxicillin case, but if you're going in there for as a, I don't know, something more severe like heart disease, or God forbid, like cancer or something like that, just be super aware. And talk to people. For myself, the biggest benefit is, there's debate on like the statins, the cholesterol lowering medications. And there's very well could be studies that come out in the future that talk about how bad they are, or maybe they could say, well, they're really good. Like, we don't really know. All the science is constantly changing. But
Mhm.
like for me, so I haven't actually done this to prove this, but I believe that if I just was 185 pounds and ate plants, I would still have high cholesterol because I genetically have a liver that just pumps out cholesterol. So I went
Same.
on, yeah, so I went on some statins, that I have to take this stuff every day for the rest of my life, but I don't feel, I'm aware of how I'm feeling. I don't feel different. I don't feel like foggy or anything is wrong with myself. So I'm like, well, let's go ahead and take these statins. And I took it. I had a blood test, and it knocked the bejesus out of my cholesterol. It was amazing. Like, all of my numbers just went boom. So you know what I did, Tam? I celebrated with a triple cheeseburger that night. So,
I'm sure that was helpful. That's, yeah,
yeah.
what your heart wants.
So,
Yeah,
then
I
I
could,
went back to my plants.
we could do a whole episode on cholesterol because I have gone down that rabbit hole, not necessarily for myself, although I am genetically wired for higher cholesterol as well. But I also have crazy high good cholesterol. And so I finally have a doctor that I really, really appreciate because a lot of times he'll start going down a path and I'm like, I'm actually already aware of this. This is awesome. But I appreciate that he goes down those paths with me and explains when he's looking at my blood work. Okay, so your cholesterol is technically high here. However, your good cholesterol is really high. So blah, blah, blah. And he's also looked at the same, it sounds like a lot of the same rabbit holes I have on, cholesterol, the leaps that a lot of studies have taken to implicate high cholesterol in risk of heart attacks. And he's kind of explained where those like leaps are. And that, as you said, as science, which is always changing, that's the nature of science, as it evolves, we could very well, learn about, maybe cholesterol as a more limited role in heart health risk, and that other ways to come at your heart health are more important, like diet and lifestyle, than just simply honing in on cholesterol as the be all end all metric that's going to either kill you or help you live longer. But yeah, I appreciated that he had a more nuanced view of cholesterol. And he's like, look, like, you're healthy. You're healthy. His whole point was, I would not worry about this slightly elevated, HDL, LDL number. Which I appreciated. He was saying it's not as straightforward as, oh my gosh, in this picture of somebody who's very healthy, great diet and lifestyle, their blood work looks fantastic, all other markers are fine, but we have to like put you on statins to get this cholesterol number down. I appreciated that he didn't take that approach, but that he was also talking to me about it and acknowledging like it is higher than the normal range.
Yeah, well, that's great. And obviously everyone's different. I mean, yeah, it's like, I think there's something called the Framingham risk calculator. I'm not a doctor,
He
but
talked about Framingham. Yep.
okay, so that's where, okay, so isn't that you put in your HDL, your LDL, and then your blood pressure, your gender, your age, right?
Yes.
And then maybe what you're saying is they got to put in like, hey, do you exercise 30 minutes a day, cardio for like 3 days a week or something? That would be awesome to put that in the risk calculator.
It would, yes. And
Yeah.
that's where he was nerding out with me, is not he's a very reasonable doctor in my opinion. But he has some skepticism when it comes to the Framingham model.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's why, find a doctor. If you don't like your doctor, or you don't know exactly where they stand, they don't know what kind of questions they're asking their friendly pharmaceutical sales reps, like, just find one you trust.
You know what I am waiting for? I think it's going to be in like 100 years. I'm waiting for the pharmaceutical industry to create nanobots that can go through my arteries and just like little tiny brooms and just scrape the plaque. Wouldn't that be
Oh,
amazing? That'd be like,
it sounds like you would think that's amazing. Yes.
yeah, you and I will be long gone, but our grandkids will enjoy that.
Oh man,
Our
that sounds
life,
terrifying to me.
our
But
lifespans are going to be 120 years old.
yes. Garrett, I know Garrett very, very well. And you guys who are listening, he is at way ahead of the curve on technology. He is, I mean, to say he's a fan of technology and advancements in technology would be a wild understatement, right?
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. It's one of my many obsessions. Yes.
He loves technology. Okay, so we talked about one of the pitfalls, because you were talking about off-label recommendations.
Yes.
One of my favorite things to do, and I did this when you told me Cardinal Health is who you worked for, is my very first internet search was Cardinal Health lawsuits. My
Yeah.
favorite,
Oh,
yeah,
all over the place.
all over the place. But one of the first, I guess, more recent settlements, it was around 13 billion, it sounds like, had to do with doctor kickbacks. Could you explain that? Do you get trained in these kind of legal pitfalls?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I don't have a good story for kickbacks, but I can speak to stuff that I've heard of, and obviously, well, actually, you know what? I don't know when that lawsuit was brought, but when I joined the pharmaceutical industry, they had some law that was passed, was federal, about and hey, we can't take them on golf trips anymore. We can't do this. We can't do that. But what they would do, and a lot of industries still do this, is they have a little loophole called speaker fees. So if you have a doctor that really love, and they went over this a lot in Dope Sick, where if there's a doctor that you can get to say, you know what, this Dispermox is just fantastic, guys. And that's all I have to say. I use Dispermox, and it's a doctor, and it's like Cardinal Health. In that case, hypothetically, would possibly like let's leave Cardinal Health out of it. A company could potentially, I'm like thinking of defamation. Like a company could potentially give
Speaking of lawsuits,
give
yeah.
a person that has been found guilty for a lawsuit, which is a statement of fact, an X company could write you a speaker fee. If you're a Dr. Tamra and you say, I love this drug, here, Tamra, here's 10 grand. That's for your speaker fee on this conference. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're pleased to have Tamra as our speaker today.
Dr. Tamra. Thank
Dr.
you very much.
Young is our speaker. So that's sort of a loophole. Also obviously is they tend, I don't know as much anymore, but definitely in the 90s for sure, just very, very attractive pharmaceutical reps that would just pay the doctors a lot of attention. And there's like again, Dope Sick goes into it, where they're like going to Hawaii or something, and oh, let's go out to dinner, we're going to go to this Michelin star restaurant, and that's the doctor and like three just extremely gorgeous pharmaceutical reps. Doctor, you're amazing, and that's the sort of things that pharmaceutical companies have done in the past to gain favor, to get the doctor to be like emotionally like, okay, earache, boom, Dispermox.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do it for sure. There's all sorts of ways that they can do it, because it's
Because
100%.
I got to hang out with her in Hawaii in a bikini. I'm thinking about her drug for sure.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because no, they'll come back and they'll be like, hey doctor, like you only prescribed 80 prescriptions. What's up? And then, yeah, I want to see her again. So I better get that up to 160. I need to double it. So, oh yeah.
Yeah. We need more
For
sick
sure.
people.
And
Uh,
it's not, yeah. So you're not talking necessarily about full patient care. You're thinking about something else.
mhm. So last question, and I didn't plan to ask this one, but I just kind of remembered as we were talking that it was a passion point of yours. You actually educated me a lot on this before I was ever interested in the space at all. And it's the opioid epidemic. So just general opinions and thoughts about the opioid epidemic and where we went wrong, who's culpable, and along with that, did it change at all your perceptions of the pharmaceutical industry?
Yeah, so the opioid epidemic is what Dope Sick talks about, and absolutely, yeah, this is the best example if you want to point out, maybe some opportunities for pharmaceutical industry reform, watch Dope Sick. It's all about off-label OxyContin. It's prescribed for breakthrough pain. It was indicated for cancer pain, and all of a sudden it's a headache. It's this and that.
Yeah.
So and it got everybody hooked.
Yeah. And
I mean,
suppressing all the while how addictive it really was. Yeah. And
it's I
as
mean,
people were getting addicted in front of your eyes, inventing the concept of, as you said, breakthrough pain. And what was the other one? Oh, that people, they're not addicted. They're just, how did they frame it? That when people needed more and more and more, the many pharmaceutical companies started teaching doctors that it's not because they're becoming addicted, something to do with their tolerance, maybe.
it's because it's working or something. They find little ways to get around it. But
Yeah.
yeah, and it's insidious.
And
I mean,
heartbreaking.
I had my wisdom teeth out. I took Vicodin, and I was like, man, I need to stick to alcohol, because if I went through this, like, I'd be literally dead. So, and OxyContin, fentanyl, it's way more powerful. I mean, fentanyl, obviously, there's a crisis for sure. So
Yeah, there is. I have some, you and I both know a lot of people in recovery coming from various drugs and walks of life. Alcohol is what obviously took me to my knees, but I had been prescribed opiates a couple of times, and I felt the exact same way, that if it were as widely available to me, or I knew how to get it as easily as alcohol, that would have been my first love. But even a lot of recovering addicts I've talked to from maybe heroin or even sometimes meth or crack took them to their knees. A lot of my friends will say that it was opiates that was their first love.
oh yeah, I mean, if it was at the corner store next to the beer, I would have taken it too, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It hits that soft spot in the brain for a lot of us.
And when you've got your doctor saying it's okay, it's not good.
Yeah.
It's
Goes a
not
long way when your doctor's, it's coming from your doctor. Yeah, absolutely.
And in my opinion, I mean, that, and again, it's between everyone and their own doctor, but like the hypnotics, Lunesta and Ambien, that's another thing. I'm like, I cannot, this is the devil. I can't go through this. For some people, it could be great, but anything that works like that has that potential for abuse, it's not good.
Habit forming is the more
I
palatable way to put it, I believe.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
spend too much time on Amazon as it is. I don't want to do it at 3 a.m. on Ambien.
Yeah, right.
Like,
Uh,
Garrett, you just bought Dodgers season tickets behind home plate.
Thanks,
Like,
Lunesta.
I'm getting you a divorce. Yeah, thanks,
Yeah,
Lunesta. And a little butterfly flies by.
it's a great ad. It's a great ad.
Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome. And before we wrap it up, I just want to open it up to you for anything we didn't talk about that you want to talk about. Any fun anecdotes that we didn't cover?
I think that I can't think of anything that we did not cover. So this has been great, Tamara. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Thanks everybody for listening.